Hello, I'm David Hunt. My guest now is somebody I have the utmost respect for. He's such a lovely, genuine person, and he does so much for business and the arts in this city of Melbourne. He's had so many opportunities to move away from here, which he has done, but he told me only not all that long ago that he wants to stay here in Melbourne, and I'm talking about Clive Scott. Hello, Clive Scott.
Hi, Dave.
Now, Clive is, got an extraordinary history. I'll read you a few points. There was so much, I had to delete most of it. Been in the hotel business for over 40 years, 21 years for the Hilton chain, where he was in Sydney, Thailand, Korea, Japan. And he's been now for the last 14 years at the Sofitel Melbourne. He's on quite a few boards and a supporter of, like homeless or youth, and across Victoria. So many organisations, I won't go into it, but I'm sure we'll talk about a few of them now. As I said, it's an honour to actually know you because you do so much for this city and you want to be part of this city. And just before we started filming, we were chatting about how lovely Melbourne is, and you were passionate about talking about Melbourne.
Yeah, Melbourne's, it's a great city. It's now, I think, a world-class city. You've got everything. You've got sport, you've got fashion, you've got arts, you've got food. Right? So we have a lot of individual industries which are really booming, have a lot of creative people in them, and you're immersed in it. If you immerse yourself in that city, there's an awful lot of things to do and see.
Absolutely.
And you meet some great people.
Absolutely, and especially the world that you revolve around, and we'll get to that. But let's talk about you as a kid growing up, because you're a Melbourne boy.
I'm a Melbourne boy. Grew up Yarraville.
Yep.
Travelled a bit with my parents because Mum and Dad moved into Asia when I was starting in I was 8, 9 years old.
Okay.
And lived a couple of places overseas, and
Right.
then came back. And then when I was in my working life, I went back to Asia to work quite extensively, and then I came back again to Melbourne.
Yeah. So what was it about the hotel trade that drew you in?
Well, it's actually with my siblings. Okay, one was great at sport, one was very intelligent, one was good at music. Right, I was the one that was an average student, and I think Dad realised that, and he was in education. And he realised, I wouldn't send him off to university very quickly. He won't last. So he just suggested, because we'd lived a lot in hotels when we were overseas, why don't you go and do a hotel course? It's going to be a big business in the future. Yep. And he was right. And so I went to do a diploma in hotel management, and that's how I really got into hotels.
But it takes a certain person, and with the right temperament, because you can't be too hot-headed, you can't be too emotional. You need to be quite steady, because you're guiding the ship, you're running the show. And if people see that you're getting a bit flustered or a little bit too emotional.
I think any business these days, you can't be hot-headed and you got to be steady. But we're in a business where we're dealing with people all the time, and they're all at different stages of their day and their life and etc. And you just deal with them as they come along. 99% of people who come to a hotel have a wonderful time. 1% have had a bad day, and you deal with it. And basically you look after them, and you can, I can tell you 99% of the time you can turn them around so they have a great time.
Yeah, and it's just that 1% that are often so vocal sometimes too, aren't they, about it?
Vocal, and sometimes they're in their right, and sometimes we might make a mistake. We have to fix that mistake. But very often, we live in a pressured world. They've travelled all day. It hasn't gone well. The plane went around 5 times in the airport in Sydney and 5 times in the airport in Melbourne. By the time to get to us, they're a little bit under the weather and hot-headed, and so we need to look after that. And a lot of it is, engage with them, talk to them, welcome them. A lot of people coming to hotels now. It's not about the sleeping in a hotel. It's about the total experience of travel, going to see a city, having a hotel in Melbourne is a blessing, because when they walk outside the door, they walk into a fabulous environment, so they really enjoy themselves.
What is it about the arts that you're so focused on, and you support it so heavily? What is it that you love about the arts?
I've always liked creative people. I've always liked people who had the ability to, come up with an idea and turn it into something, right? And I just love dealing with those people because they're very unique and very special, and they really have an ability we don't all have. And when you somebody takes a plain piece of paper and the next thing it's a beautiful piece of art, I think that's something which is unique and special. And a lot of those people, you look at them and they don't. It's not an easy life. It's very hard to be a highly creative person because you're under stress all the time to create. I need to do something. I need to make something, right? So I like to support them because I like to put them into the space where they have time, they have ability to create, they have the actual, in some cases, money to create. So it enables them to do what they need to do because we can't all do it, and we need them to do it.
Yeah, and as you said, it is quite tough, and financially, and they've got to exist. But now with government funding, it's even been cut more, as we're finding out now. And so that's why it is important that there is support with businesses, and they're saying this is the future of art, businesses and organisations to help our arts flourish.
I'm not going to defend the government, but I have to say that it's very difficult for them because we need more education, hospitals, roads. So the money gets thinner and thinner.
Sure.
So yes, it's harder then for arts to get the money. And I'd employ anybody that was in any type of business. Just think about how you could help art in some way, because a lot of it's not to do with money. A lot of it could do with give somebody space, give somebody time, give somebody free advice, and that would help them a lot. Rather than it's not all about just walking along and handing somebody a lot of cash. That's not what they really need.
I love it, the fact that I often see you, and a lot of times I'd see you to say hello at events within the arts, and then there's times I don't have a chance to see, but I see you in the distance. You go out a lot within the arts, don't you? You're not just supporting the arts. You actually enjoy, and I see you at fringe shows. Like what is it about going out within the arts?
I think you can be a sponsor. That's easy to do. You can be a philanthropist. That's easy to do.
Absolutely.
But what's the point of putting on a play if nobody comes? What's the point of painting something if nobody goes to see it? And it's not a case whether we like it or not. I remember saying once to a group of people, they were trying to get supporters for their organisation. I said, well, the first thing to understand about this is you don't have to like it. You don't have to like the play. You don't have to think anything good about it. You just have to support it. And it's important. It's just as important you come along and don't like it as somebody comes along and loves it, because you're actually supporting their artistic endeavour that they're trying to do. And okay, this one may not be good, but then the next one might. There's a lot of writers in the world that the first thing they wrote was rubbish, right? And then they ended up winning a Pulitzer Prize for something. So I think we have to assist them and help them. A fringe artist who might be doing something completely strange and outlandish that we haven't got a clue what they're doing could end up being a fabulous director of a play, or they could be a great playwright, but they need to start somewhere to experiment and to understand what their art form is. We need to support that.
Even to the extent where you've told me on one occasion that your nephew was in the Fringe Festival.
Yeah, my nephew pronounced. I mean, when my brother told me, I actually rang my brother back and said, "Which nephew?" He said, "You only have one." I said, "Oh yeah, that's right. What's he doing?" I thought he was producing or directing or something. He said, "No, he's doing a play." I said, "Really? Really? You mean the man at the Christmas party that sits in the corner on his phone all the time and doesn't talk to anybody?" Yep. And he did a one-man play, which he wrote himself in Fringe, which was a very clever piece of theatre that, without a doubt, needed a lot of work. Right?
Well, that's what Fringe is about.
But it was a great start, and most of the audience were family and friends. Right? But it was a start, and we all went and we all supported it, and I think that's, with a lot of artists, that's how they get their start, and it's important that they do.
Tell me, what is it about the city of Melbourne? We can mention sport because sport is such a huge part of this town. But what is it about Melbourne that encourages people here to move here from interstate and even overseas to be here, and it's the key point for so many forms of art, visual arts and performing arts. What is it about this city that creates that?
It's a little bit like, we have fantastic theatre in this city, live theatre.
Yep.
I think a lot of that is the propensity of us Melbournians to go. On a rainy day and they're having an event, 2,000 people will still turn up. So I think we have this thing that we'll go and we'll see it and we'll be part of it. And a lot of that creates a market where people I can put on something because I know somebody's going to come and support it. And I think that's a culture in the city, or we're happy to go out and see something. And we're happy to be together as a group and to experience. I mean, you look at something like Federation Square, how successful it's been.
And how much it was canned to begin with. Yeah.
But you look, they're doing over 300 events, and a lot of them are multicultural. They're dance. They're all sorts of different events that people turn up to and support in some way.
Yep.
And I think that propensity for us to attend something drives a lot of the culture of the city, and it actually supports the city. Look at our restaurant trade, right? You have many, many nights of the week. You can't get somebody into a restaurant. Now, if you think about it, we've got more restaurants than most cities in the world, and there are people sitting them enjoying the dining because they're very good restaurants. And what that's doing by everybody going is driving the quality of the art and the food and everybody. It's driving everybody to do a better job all the time and to do something different and to do something exciting. And I think that's just the culture of the city that it is, that we go, we drive the artistic person to be better, we drive the chef to be better, and basically that just increases. So I think when people come to the city, it's a very exciting city to be in. There's always something going on.
Oh, always. I just want to go back on an organisation that I touched on in the intro, Craft Victoria. Now, we look at Craft Victoria and you think, what's Craft Victoria? Being craft, is it somebody that knits? Well, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Tell me, why did you get involved in Craft Victoria?
Originally, they were my neighbours when I was in the hotel. They were right behind us.
That's right.
So I started to help our neighbours out with different things. And then I ended up on the board. Right? And then, first of all, we gave a prize, and then we ended up on the board. Right? Craft is an organisation representing craft makers, right, who are really making with the hand. I think that in the modern day, that is something which is now very much appreciated if somebody can do that. You mentioned somebody knitting. I mean, there are artists knitting now that, and they're knitting art pieces. They're knitting a series of look like sculptures, and it's just so beautiful. There are jewelers, woodworkers, right? Glass people, paper makers. It's a whole range of different crafts. The beauty of it is that they're spread all across Victoria.
Yep.
And some of them are sitting in their kitchens folding paper, making cards, right? Some of them, making jewellery just at home from local stones they pick up on the beach. And it's all really people going back to that earthy feeling
grassroots.
The feeling of the country, of the land. And I think that's also why, in many ways, our connection with Indigenous people, the more we can do that is better, because their understanding of the land is much greater than our understanding of the land. And it would be good if, craft embraces that more and more, and which I think they are, And
I was at your hotel the other week for a beautiful occasion. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, talking about fashion.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about the lady that you were celebrating.
We were celebrating Shirley Keon, who is a designer.
Yep.
And she was a designer either in Flinders Lane or upper end of Collins Street for over 50 years. She's still working. And Shirley had always a workshop set up on the same process of an atelier in France, where you would come in, you would choose your material, Shirley would measure you up, she would draw a sketch of what your dress was going to look like, or your pants, etc. And then it would be make a hand pattern, hand cut, hand sewn, fitted, hand sewn, fitted, hand sewn, fitted, and then you take your garment away. Very unique materials and a very unique style. And
even to the extent where some were on display, where they still are, I believe.
Yes, they still are, yes.
And feathers. That skirt was all little feathers.
All little feathers, yeah.
You know, like extraordinary amount of time.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, Shirley's going to finish her practice next year. There are a couple of younger designers who have also started in Flinders Lane. The same process they've started. So it's not a dying practice. It's actually something which is continuing.
But how lovely that you celebrated her career at that event. Ida Buttrose was there.
Yeah, Ida opened it.
Yeah, like she's designed clothes for her over the years. Extraordinary. A burlesque performer who I think you introduced them, didn't you?
I'm actually on their board.
Right.
I'm the chairman of their advisory board. That's Finucane and Smith.
Who's an extraordinary woman, hysterical. You know, like I love the fact that you can't get a word in edgewise when she's around you, and two people like that working together.
Well, it's interesting because Shirley went to see the burlesque hour, and then said, "Oh, I need to design for that lady. I need to make a dress for her." So she's actually made over the last 10 years several spectacular outfits.
Unbelievable.
Which Maura has featured in the show.
Yeah.
And I think that's two amazing artists realising we need to support each other, and our practices should come together somehow.
Yeah, and that is important, and that's where like you're giving opportunities, because I was meeting people from Christ Victoria on that night, and like all those people were there together, and like all with the one thoughts and ideas, but you brought them all together. It was a special occasion.
I think we need to, arts needs to cross over.
Yes.
For years and years, for centuries, two artists getting together actually create. It's like artists going into a residency. Half the residency, the benefit of is meeting the other artist, whatever their practice is. Right? And a lot of great work has been created out of a musician meeting a poet, right, or a writer meeting a painter. Right? And I think that I try to put people together if I can. Right, and get them to meet each other, and then obviously sometimes their disciplines cross and they work together.
You're doing a wonderful job. I can't wait to see what you do in the next 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and I'm sure it will be spectacular stuff.
I'll be too old in 10 years, I think.
No, you never say that. You're never too old. But thank you for what you do for the people of Melbourne. You're such a wonderful person, and the lovely temperament that comes with it. Clive Scott, thank you.
Thank you, David.
I'm David Hunt, and we'll see you real soon.